Doom Eternal, the upcoming sequel to Doom 2016 by id Software, quickly became a highly anticipated title when it was revealed back in E3 2018. Since then, many pieces of concept art, trailers, and general info has been revealed, which gave rise to a great deal of theorizing. Questions arose on whether or not the rebooted Doom is somehow connected to the original games. And with Doom Eternal launching right around the corner, I thought I'd theorize a bit regarding this question. I know this is not exactly the usual topic matter I discuss, but I decided to take the path of perpetual torment. So with all that being said, let's discuss Doom Eternal's hidden story. One of the biggest questions surrounding Doom Eternal are the origins of the protagonist, known as the Doomslayer. In fact, during an interview with Game Informer, creative director Hugo Martin stated, "Well, one thing we're going to do is we're going to answer the question about whether or not it is the same guy from 1993 Doom. We're going to answer a lot of questions actually." So, in other words, does the Doomslayer have some sort of a hidden tale to tell? Well, to answer that question, a deeper look into Doom lore is warranted. Regardless of the possible origins of the Slayer, let's start at the beginning. To illustrate this, I devised this timeline based on the Slayer Testaments, commencing with the inception of the Slayer and ending with the start of Doom 2016. At the beginning, he first appeared in Hell and began his initial rampage. Hell, becoming ever more anxious of the Slayer, sent their greatest champion, the Titan, described as one with immeasurable power and ferocity, faced off against the Slayer, only to be killed, his carcass scattered throughout Titan's realm. But what is truly noteworthy from this encounter is that the Slayer accomplished this feat before receiving the Praetor suit, special armor given to him. Moving on, after the slaying of the Titan, the only option available to Hell seemed to be imprisoning the Slayer, who was lured into tombs, then later captured via collapsing ruins. The Slayer was then sealed inside a sarcophagus, only to be discovered by the UAC, thus beginning the plot of Doom 2016. And while that was a rudimentary take of the story up to that point, a great deal more can be inferred. To that end, a codex file appears that describes the Doom Marine. Along with it, the tapestry of his story is displayed. Within it, this hooded figure looks down on the Slayer. But who is this entity? Inferring from the tapestry, he must be an individual with some significance. In our search, we entered the beginning of Doom 2016, in which you hear a voice.
They are rage, brutal, without mercy. But you will be worse. Rip and tear until it is done.
Now, since we are viewing this from the Slayer's perspective, perhaps this voice was a memory from days gone by. But what more information is there? Within the Slayer Testaments, possible insights are told, in which one entry states,
"And in his conquest against the blackened souls of the doomed, his prowess was shown. In his crusade, the seraphim bestowed upon him terrible power and speed, and with his might he crushed the obsidian pillars of the blood temples."
In other words, the seraphim was the one who bestowed the Slayer ability some consider to be unnatural. But who is the seraphim? Well, in biblical lore, the seraphim or seraphs are described as high-ranking angels, which brings up a thought. Within the new Doom Eternal trailers, an angelic-like entity is seen. However, it was later noted that this being is called the Khan Maker. More on this in a bit. Back to the tapestry. It is theorized that this hooded figure is also the seraphim, which it likewise can make sense, considering it is likely he acts as a guide of sorts for the Slayer. All of this is interesting, of course, but a question arises: is the hooded figure the seraphim or not? Within another piece of cover art, another hooded figure can also be seen. resembling closely to the depiction found on the Slayer tapestry. Personally, I believe it is likely that these two hooded figures are one and the same. For instance, both depictions display the figure as looking down or possibly guiding the Slayer. But whether or not this hooded figure or the Khan Maker is the Seraphim is a question that requires more digging. On the subject of the latter, the Khan Maker, more information detailing his origins can be found within the Collector's Edition, in which a lithograph is included, dubbed the Gift of Argent Power. We see the Khan Maker presumably giving the knowledge of Argent's energy to what appears to be the Night Sentinels, the supernatural knights who oppose demonic forces, which is very telling. Looking at both Doom Eternal art and Sentinel ruins, it seems as if the Night Sentinels revere entities similar to the Khan Maker. But where am I going at with all this? How does this provide insight on the identity of the Doomslayer? Well, during QuakeCon 2019, in an interview with development heads Marty and Hugo, they confirmed that the voice found in the Doom Eternal trailers is the same voice found in the beginning of Doom 2016.
The Doom Eternal trailer. Who's narrating that trailer?
Yeah, the
What
story
character?
trailer. We got a lot of questions about that. It wasn't clear. Some people thought it was Samuel or this or that.
All right, that's a good Easter egg.
Yeah.
That is the voice from the beginning of Doom 2016. The voice that says they are rage, brutal, relentless, without mercy, but you will be worse. That's him. And he plays a part in the Doom universe.
Okay.
And during the opening of 2016, the voice tells the Slayer that while demons are rage, brutal, without mercy, he will be worse. In other words, the voice seems to be encouraging the Slayer to continue his rampage. In brief, it is likely that this voice comes from the Seraphim. I say that considering this occurs pretty early in the Testament timeline, and that the Slayer began the bulk of his rampage in Hell after receiving the Seraphim's blessing. But he appears to have a change in interaction. Within Doom 2016, his words were rather encouraging towards the Slayer, while in Doom Eternal, his words seem to be one of warning.
What you interfere with now is bigger than you can imagine. If you continue, you will bring down the heavens' wrath. It is written. It is their time to give penance. You are but one man.
That if he continues, he will bring down heaven's wrath. Of course, I can only speculate what this actually means, along with its context, but perhaps the Seraphim was only content for the Slayer to continue his rampage in Hell, and not on Earth, and that it was time to give penance. Which brings another question. Within Doom 2016, you can see that the Slayer is visibly angry at UAC staff, refusing to fully cooperate with Samuel Hayden, and appears to be furious at the loss of human life. In other words, what are the Slayer's motivations? If anything else, it's almost as if he's angry that the UAC caused a demonic outbreak. Which brings up a thought. What are the origins of the Doomslayer? Our search begins in Argent du Nord, the final map of Doom 2016. Within Doom lore, a great battle was fought here, in which the Night Sentinels defended against a previous demonic invasion. With the help of the Wraiths, these entities who were allied with the Knights, the demonic invasion was nearly repelled. However, a Hell Priest deceived the individual known as the Betrayer, stating that he would bring his dead son back to life. As a result of the betrayal, Argent du Nord was assimilated into Hell, the Night Sentinels defeated, and the Wraiths corrupted. And while the Betrayer's lost son was indeed resurrected, he was brought back as a demon, an icon of sin. Many have theorized that the Doomslayer is actually the Betrayer. I respectfully disagree. Back to our timeline, and as stated previously, the Doomslayer began his initial rampage in Hell before receiving the Praetor suit. Once again, the Slayer managed to kill the Titan before obtaining the armor. Within Dr. Hayden's office, you see statues of Night Sentinels along with a statue of the Slayer, in which you can clearly see it's a depiction of the new Praetor suit. It is likely that Hayden found these statues within Argent de Nor, given the UIC's research focus and the fact that you see similar statues within the area, the same location that was later assimilated into Hell via the story of the Betrayer. See what I'm getting at here? If the Night Sentinels built these statues in reverence of the Slayer within Argent de Nor, then this must have occurred before the betrayal. After all, they couldn't build statues if everyone here is dead. Additionally, these statues depict the Praetor suit, which was not given to the Slayer until after his initial rampage when the Titan was already killed, meaning there was a considerable amount of time in which the Slayer rampaged through Hell before receiving the armor. Proponents of the Betrayer being the Doomslayer theory argue that the Slayer began his rampage as a result of the botched deal, which according to the timeline we have just established, doesn't necessarily add up. But for the sake of argument, if the Slayer was the Betrayer, you would think Argent de Nor would be at the top of his list to start his rampage through Hell. Yet as we've seen in Doom 2016, the Wraiths are still imprisoned. And to add more evidence, during the beginning of Doom 2016 when the Slayer first puts on his helmet, he tries to smudge out the mark of the Slayer, almost as if it's a foreign marking to him. The same symbol can be seen on Night Sentinel spirits, who must have been killed off during the betrayal, meaning they already had prior knowledge of him, and while it is likely that the Slayer is already acquainted with the Night Sentinels, I do not think the Slayer's origins are tied with them. To make sense of all of this, bigger connections with the rest of the Doom franchise arises. Beginning with the events of Doom 1, the initial demonic invasion began on Mars. Its sequel, Doom 2, sports another invasion but on Earth. But here is the kicker. Another game in the franchise, Doom 64, takes place after these events, in which the Doom Marine is recommissioned back to Mars to stop yet another invasion. I imagine at this point the Doom Marine was getting sick of staying on the receiving end of all this, so much so that he decided to stay in Hell to make sure another invasion never occurs, as stated by its ending. As the only Marine to endure the slaughter, you decide to remain in Hell and ensure no demon ever rises again. Many have already pointed out how well Doom 64 connects with 2016. Considering how one ends and the other begins in Hell, I can certainly see the connection. Moreover, the Slayer looked visibly angry that another demonic invasion happened on Mars, as indicated when he cracks his knuckles and appears to be absolutely furious at Samuel Hayden, almost as if he wanted to prevent this sort of thing from happening. But is there any evidence to support this connection? In our search, we enter the Argent Breach, a map found within Doom 2016, described as an ancient burial ground for the Night Sentinels. In it, we find statues of what appears to be wraiths, allies to the Sentinels. But curiously, we find monuments of 3 prominent figures. And this is where we segue back to the Khan Maker. Within Doom Eternal art, you see beings that appear similar to the Angel. One of these entities is found predominantly in Night Sentinel structures. In fact, this individual is often paired with 2 others. So who are these 3 figures? Going back to the Doom Eternal lithograph, in which the Khan Maker came into contact with the Night Sentinels, and considering the official art, a safe bet would be that this trio is associated with the Maker or Heaven in some way. Speaking of the name, the Khan Maker, it roughly translates to the Supreme Maker. In other words, the name is a derivative of a title than anything else. Are these 3 other entities also associated with that title? To put it another way, are they also makers who have some sort of a connection to the Supreme Maker? For the sake of convenience, I'll call these 3 the Maker Trio. And despite my theorizing, these 3 seem to be held in high regard by the Night Sentinels. On that subject, back to the Argent Breach. Further murals can also be seen, no doubt telling the exploits of the Knights. However, within the stained glass, you do see one of the Makers, in particular the one that appears to be holding a portal of sorts. Nearby, these pentagrams with symbols in them are displayed. The same insignia is found all throughout Night Sentinel ruins. If I were to hazard a guess, the symbol might be the marking of the Night Sentinels themselves. Moving on, within the map Empyrean, a similar aesthetic is shared. While this area is described as a floating coliseum for the Night Sentinels, a similar reverence for the Maker Trio can also be seen. For a better look at them, here is the official art of the group shared by the official Doom account. So what could this all mean? Enter Doom 64. Within the plot, the Doom Marine finds himself locating rather strange artifacts, and these items are known as the Demon Keys, and there are 3 of them, each sharing a unique color scheme. Notice any similarities here? Moving on, these keys seem to have 2 functions, one of them being to seal demons away during the Mother Demon encounter, and the other is tied with a weapon known as the Unmaker, an artifact able to kill demons with relative ease, depending on how many keys are obtained. But honestly, its function is rather strange to me. For instance, why would a weapon presumably made by demons hurt other demons? In fact, the weapon is weakest when turned against non-demonic entities. So what gives? Our search leads us to lead character artist Jason Martin, who designed the Maker Trio. When referring to the red one, Jason stated, "The Crucible that the red guy is holding was modeled by Brian Winya. Concepts, John Lane." For a quick recap, the Crucible is an artifact found in Doom 2016, with the ability to absorb and manipulate large amounts of demonic energy. So what can we take from all this? Well, I am not sure if the Crucible's origins are entirely allied with Hell. Not only do we see similar blades bearing the Doomslayer logo, but we also see them as statues throughout Argent Breach, a Night Sentinel burial ground. Additionally, the Crucible is kept in the Necropolis, in which the in-game description states, "When the expedition of 2148 reached the Great Step, massive structures were found. Unlike any edifices yet seen in Hell, it is believed that these structures were native to this area, absorbed when the civilization was conquered. The construction bears resemblance to many known earthly architectural movements and many unknown, potentially extraterrestrial designs." In other words, the area in which the Crucible is held was an assimilated portion of Hell, not dissimilar to Argent de Noor. So where am I getting at with all this? Going back to the trio, these 3 figures appear to stand in opposition to Hell's advances. I say this considering how these 3 are held in high regard by the Night Sentinels, the same group who is known to be at war with Hell. Moreover, one of these entities is seen holding the Crucible, and strangely enough, some of his statues are seen without the Crucible, while some are. Almost as if the Crucible was taken from him, and based on information from both the Helix Stone and in-game lore, the Crucible seems to have the ability to manipulate demonic energy based on its wielder's volition. So, who are these entities? Are they fallen angels? Are they demons who decided to rebel against Hell? Personally, your guess is as good as mine. But this brings up another point. Back to the topic of Doom 64, these demon keys are found, and not only do they share similar color schemes as the trio, but their usage is also curious, in which they are presumably demonic in origin, but it seems as though their only usage is to kill off or imprison other demons, not humans. And this leads us back to the name Khan Maker, or the title of Maker itself. If this angel is somehow associated with the 3, which seems likely due to concept art, are there any connections between the Maker Trio with the Demon Keys? Well, enter the Unmaker. Stated previously, seems to be only designed to kill off demons, and notice its name, the Unmaker, which seems to stand in opposition with the angelic title of Maker. Is there some sort of a connection here? Are these 3 entities somehow linked to the Demon Keys? Recently, its software has dealt with Doom 64. In fact, during a past Nintendo Direct, it was revealed that the game is being ported onto the Switch. But here is the kicker. Both Doom 64 and Eternal are releasing on the same exact day. Or at least it was originally planned that way. As of this recording, Doom Eternal has been delayed to March 20th, 2020. However, it was also revealed that Doom 64 is coming to PC, and that version will launch on the same day as Eternal, and the former which ends with the Doom Marine deciding to remain in hell. Needless to say, I do think there is some sort of a connection here. The very fact that id Software has stated that they would answer the question regarding whether or not Doom Eternal is connected with the original game says volumes. Could this be Doom Eternal's hidden story? That after the events of the original Doom games, the Marine stayed in hell to ensure no other demonic invasions occur. The Seraphim, whoever he is, noted his resolve, blessed him with otherworldly abilities, and across his campaign against the Doomed, encountered the Night Sentinels, revering entities associated with artifacts he has seen prior. The Knights seeing him as something of a legend who was feared across hell. As a result, fought side by side during the referenced Unholy Crusade, which later leads us to the plot of Doom 2016, and eventually, Doom Eternal. But I'm afraid questions still remain. Who is the Seraphim exactly? Who is the wretch, the person who gave the Slayer the Praetor suit? Considering that English typography is found on the armor raises questions. Also, who is the Betrayer, the Marauder, the Gladiator, and the Maker trio? Well, I'm afraid we won't know for sure until Doom Eternal finally comes out. Needless to say, this is just a theory. I can't be completely wrong about this. For all we know, Doom Eternal is directly connected with Doom Annihilation. Hope to God that isn't the case, but regardless of what actually happens, I am hyped as hell for Doom Eternal. Philosophically speaking, Doom is about overcoming adversity, that whatever obstacles you may go through in life, that these challenges may be rage, brutal, without mercy, but if you overcome them, you will be worse. If you want me to do more Doom vids, feel free to let me know. It was honestly a blast working on this one. Special thanks goes to Phronophobia, Resistor, Averith, Prison Island Head, Jay Antonucci, and Sabertooth59385. Thank you so much for donating, guys. If you want to see Night Owl continue on, donating as little as $1 over in Patreon will honestly go a long way. If not, liking and commenting also helps a great deal. Regardless of what happens though, have a wonderful rest of the day or night, and rip and tear until it is done.